Let's try to make it a bit moodier in here. Bit too much, probably. But, oh shit, it's way too much smoke. What happened? Go away. I'm gonna tell you a few things, what I love about the Canon 1DX Mark II. Even in 2019, I took my whole family. We drove to the mountains because I was thinking like, oh yeah, let's film it in like snow. It was so windy. It started snowing. My eyes started to tear up. So when I was looking at the histogram of the camera, I thought it was properly exposed, but there was a super thin sliver that was the highlights. I didn't see that. It's so classical me. Overexposed, the whole thing. Let's check it out. So the C-Log 3 profile that Atomos and James Miller made. Looking forward to getting home to color correct it, see how it did it in the snow. There's a lot of white here, some trees. I'm exhausted, man. The snow, woof. Starting to snow quite a bit now. I think we should think of getting back down. I think that's a good idea. See you soon. Finally back from the mountain. I had a sneak peek on the C-Log footage from the snow. I'm not convinced. Maybe I did something wrong with the settings. You did do something wrong with the settings. You dragged your family out from sunny Barcelona, drove for a couple of hours. It's not like we had an X-Wing to get there quickly. We arrived at the mountain. James Miller. I'm not crying. After all this hassle, you didn't even expose the camera properly. Let's start off with a neutral profile or natural profile to see how it handles the highlights, also the details. I'm going to zoom quite in the buildings over there in the background to see the quality difference between a 4K 24 frames per second, and also I'm going to film in 4K 60 frames per second. That is the highest bitrate available on this camera, which is 800 megabits, which you know I love.
I hate it when he does that.
Natural picture profile. You can see the sky. I'm filming in 100 ISO. You can see here that the sky is very, very true. This is more or less what it looks like now. Now let's change it to the C-Log, the C-Log 3. Now, as I said, I was not too happy with that in the snow because it's so flat and I was not too convinced about it.
I've got a bad feeling about this.
Filming in 4K, 24 frames per second. It looks all right. All right. What I didn't try up in the mountains was the C-Log neutral. I'm going to try that one as well. That is not as flat as the C-Log 3. Let's give it a go. Again, I'm filming in 4K, 24 frames per second. And the megabits per second is about 500. Let's just have a look at the buildings, the sky. Let's do 60 frames per second. This is the highest bitrate possible. I'm going to start off with filming it in picture profile standard to see what comes out straight from the camera. I think it looks sharper. Am I right? Let's look at the buildings. Let's change it to a C-Log. Let's start with the C-Log 3. C-Log 3 in highest possible bit rates. I don't know, man. I think it's struggling more with the highlights than the shadows. I was able to bring back the shadows pretty well in the snow. Cool. Now let's do the last one in C-Log 1. Here we go. It's not as flat. I haven't used a log for a long time, since the Canon 1DX Mark II actually don't come with one. So this is the, I don't know if we should call it fake C-Log, possibly. Now, enough about the log. Let's also do one slow motion, just so you can see the difference between a maximum bitrate. Alrighty then, there we go. Would be cool if some birds came along. No birds, where did the birds go? As a professional filmmaker, the dynamic range is key. Did it help with the C-Log? In my point of view, it didn't. I've got an easy light setup here with just one spotlight and one lume cube for the rim. Here we have Luke on his favorite Tauntaun on ISO 400. Let's crank it up and see what happens. 800, 1600, 3002, 6004, and this is 12,800. That's the brightest. I have to even lower the strength of the spotlight. Of course, you can see some noise at this ISO, but I think that is holding up pretty well. This is 4K, and you can see that there is a crop here of 1.3. I'm gonna show you another good thing about the Canon 1DX Mark II, which is how it handles the rolling shutter. I'm very impressed by the Canon 1DX Mark II's shutter. For example, I'm gonna now tilt that camera, which is a Sony a6-300. I'm not saying anything bad about the Sony camera, I just want you to see the difference between that camera and this one. Let's compare it. So, I'm gonna move the tripod a bit. Look at that wall there. That is one of the most insane rolling shutter effects I have ever seen. And let's do a test of the rolling shutter of the 1DX Mark II. You can still see it, but it's much better. The wobbling is not that bad. In the other video, I talk about the importance of the megabits per second when it comes to video recording in the Canon 1DX Mark II.
Why? What?
The reason why it's so important is that you have a lot of information in each frame. So you have new cameras that come out, which have only like 100 megabits per second. And in my point of view, that is not enough. Why? Because when it comes to, for example, color grading or color correction, green screen, even though you shoot in 4K, if the megabits per second is as low as 100, you're going to have real difficulties there in actually distinguishing the colors. So it's more important to have high megabits per second than, for example, 4K. As many of you might know, the first feature film that actually took full advantage of a digital cinema camera was Star Wars Episode II: Attack of the Clones. Imagine this. Attack of the Clones was filmed in HD. It was not even 4K. That tells us that the megabits per second is essential here.
I was beginning to wonder if you'd got my message.
I've been using various cameras before I got myself the 1DX Mark II, where the bit rates were between 100 and 500. 500 is a pretty good bit rate, but still there's 300 more bit rates that you can get in this camera. And I think that makes the Canon 1DX Mark II very relevant still in 2019. So would you buy the 1DX Mark II? This is so stupid. I didn't shave because I was going to the mountain, but I can see now that I look pretty wild. I'm gonna go and shave. See ya.